Welcome to Food and Facilities, an online show for Planting to Processing Magazine, formerly West Coast Industrial Solutions Magazine. Watch what you read for safety, compliance, and innovation news within manufacturing, agriculture, food processing, and food and beverage industries. In this episode, we'll be discussing sales training, coaching, and consulting with Les Lent. Welcome to Food and Facilities. I'm Tara Sweeney, the Marketing Director for Planting to Processing, formerly West Coast Industrial Solutions Magazine. Make sure to subscribe at wcismag.com/subscribe for all the safety, compliance, and innovation news for manufacturing, food and beverage, food processing, and agriculture. And one of our sponsors is Fine Print Plus, and you can hear a little bit more about them in this video. Fine Print Plus, where your business is always essential to us. We have contactless ordering options by phone, email, and through our website. We offer graphic design, printing and scanning, and custom apparel options. We have complete in-house graphics, and we do custom designs and logos. We can put your logo and graphics on business cards, envelopes, letterheads, and carbonless forms. We even do notepads, booklets, and binding. And if you're in construction or architecture, we do plans, blueprints, and reprographics. Does your store have a promotion? We also do signs and banners. And make sure to dress to the nines and look at our custom apparel options. We have aprons, shirts, polos, button-ups, and you can apply through screen printing or embroidery. We also have promotional items available, so you can have your business on pens, mugs, and even stress balls. Talk to one of our sales reps and start your order today. Give us a call at 559-237-4747. Give us an email at graphics@fineprintplus.com or request a quote at fineprintplus.com/quote. Make sure to mention this advertisement for 500 free business cards with purchase for new customers, and contact Fine Print Plus today. I'm here with my guest, Les Lent. He's a sales trainer, author, and coach, and you can reach him at Les, L-E-S, at leslent, L-E-S-L-E-N-T.com, or you can give him a call at 916-474-0163. Welcome, Les.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you today?
Not bad for a beautiful spring Saturday morning, but I did have to put on a collared shirt for this interview today. So,
and I appreciate that. You look very dashing.
Pleasure.
Can I have you give a little background on yourself for our viewers and listeners?
Absolutely. So I've been a sales professional for the better part of 25 plus years, 100% commission. I've sold all kinds of things from professional services, advertising, food service products, ironically, which was the core of my career. And for the last 12 years, I've owned my own company called Accelerated Sales, and I act as a consultant and a trainer and a coach, and I provide consulting services to mostly in the business-to-business or B2B space. So companies that are selling products, goods, or services to other businesses. And I run in three very distinct lanes. So one of those lanes is consulting, where I'll do some discovery and figure out what process that a client is currently using to sell their goods or services, and then make recommendations on how they might change their approach. The other component is training, where I work with salespeople in a wide variety of industries from coast to coast, at least pre-COVID I did. and actually provide instruction on sales best practices and methodology. And then the third lane I run in is the coaching lane, where I'll actually work with sales individuals or sales professionals, either out in the field pre-pandemic or now more virtually, riding silent shotgun, if you will, on their sales calls, and then providing that feedback on how they could make slight tweaks or changes to their approach in order to be more effective in the sales process. So I've been doing that, like I said, for about 12 years, and I've made a huge impact for a number of companies across the country.
What are some changes you've seen in sales during the pandemic?
That's a great question. Two things. Number one, it's forced sales professionals to embrace technology that's been available for a decade, right? So we could have sold virtually 2 years ago if we wanted to, and it's one of those rare occasions where we didn't need to invent technology to solve a problem. We actually had a solution that was in search of a problem, whether it was Zoom meeting, GoToMeeting, team meetings, text messaging, social media platforms, DMs, all of those different platforms existed. So really what it's forced sales professionals to do is two things. Number one, you have to embrace technology or you will not survive. And here we are a year later, and it's taken a lot of people out of the game. The other thing that it's forced people to do is to sharpen their game, so to speak, as a sales professional. So you go back to even before the last recession, when the economy is good and times are good, it's not that difficult to sell stuff. You just have to see enough people. It's kind of that quote unquote numbers game. And what the last recession did and what the pandemic has done, even more so this go around, is it's really forced people to take their profession to the next level. So the good old boy network, the relationships that people relied so heavily on, those don't work as well anymore. So what it's really forced sales professionals to do is to be very direct in what it is that they're looking for. It's forcing sales professionals to lead with value, because quite frankly, everybody in the world right now, or at least over the last year, has gone through the same or similar issues, right? So we all went through freak out mode, and then we figured out, okay, so am I going to be able to navigate through this? And if so, what's that going to look like? So people have less time, less patience for that, just floating it to the top of your inbox, or those other, what I would call salesy approaches. So for most sales professionals right now, if they're going to continue to grow their business and continue to flourish and thrive, let alone survive, they're going to have to be very, very good at what they do, meaning they're going to have to ask for people's time in small amounts, and they're going to have to lead with value, because nobody has time right now or the appetite to risk anything, their time in particular. So those are the two biggies: is embracing technology, making sure that you are just absolutely bring your A game every day as it relates to sales. And if you didn't have an A game before the pandemic, you're probably not selling anymore. And if you're not bringing your A game every day, you're probably not hitting your number, or you're not meeting your quota, or you're not making your goals. So those are the two biggies.
What's something you wish more people knew about sales?
Here's the one thing I want everybody to know about sales, and I've been preaching this for over 20 years, and it's this notion that sales is not some mysterious black box or some soft skill. Sales is a very hard job, and it scares the daylights out of 75% of most people in the workplace. Most people go, oh, no, I'm not one of those. I don't want to be that person, right? But the biggest takeaway that I think somebody could have as it relates to professional selling is the notion that the shortest course on selling is 4 simple words. And those 4 simple words are this: ask questions and listen. If you want to be good at sales, you need to ask really good questions. And if you want to be excellent at sales, you have to be able to ask really good questions all throughout the sales cycle. And then you have to listen with the intent to understand. See, I said the shortest course on selling is 4 simple words: ask questions and listen. And it is that simple, but it's not easy, because we can't ask just any old question. We have to ask relevant, well thought out, well prepared, well practiced questions. And that's just half the equation. And the other half of the equation is we have to listen, and listening is different than waiting to talk. We have to listen with the intent to understand what the other person or party is trying to accomplish and why it's important to them. So if you're in sales and you're listening to this, or if you're thinking about getting into sales and you're listening to this, that's the absolute first thing I would tell you. And if I were to provide training or coaching to you for a day, a week, a month, or a year, I would circle back to that theme over and over and over and over again. Ask questions and listen. And then as a bonus, I guess the other thing I would say that is an absolute must in sales is preparation, pre-call preparation. The salespeople that wing it and that just shoot from the hip are the ones that are struggling the most right now. I would much rather see you spend 20 or 30 minutes preparing for a 5-minute phone call than preparing for 30 seconds for an hour-long sales meeting, which is what most people do. So I guess those would be, you asked for one, I gave you two.
What would you say is a good question?
Well, it depends. A good question really depends on where you're at in the sales process, where you're at in the sales cycle, and who you're talking to. But here's just a couple of general examples. This is going to sound so granular, but early in the sales process, if you're prospecting or you're getting to know somebody and you're trying to build rapport, I want to know things like, where are you from? How did you get into this business? Because the goal is to make a strong connection, and everybody wants to talk about the same thing. Right now, I am talking about my absolute favorite subject, which is me, because you're asking me questions about my favorite subject, which is me. So if I'm going to try and sell to you, I've got to get you to talk about your favorite subject, which is you, right? So I would say, Tara, how did you get into this business? What brought you to WCIS? How long have you been in the? Those are really simple, granular questions. But as you get deeper and deeper into the sales process, I like asking questions like, if somebody reaches out to me through my website or through my marketing efforts and they say, hey, I'd like to schedule a call with you, one of the very first questions I ask is, what prompted you to reach out to me? And that question in and of itself can elicit a 15 or 20-minute answer that's going to give me so much information. But most salespeople, they just want to jump in and talk about their favorite subject, which is who they are, what they do, who they sell for, what they sell, how awesome it is, the product or service that they sell. And the customer already knows most of that stuff because they did their homework before they ever reached out. So that's one of my favorite questions. What prompted you to reach out to us? Another favorite question I've used multiple times in this interview is, can you help me understand what you're trying to accomplish? And the follow-up question to that is, why is that important to you? Because everybody buys for using the same process. We make purchases based on a logical decision or a logic reasoning, and then but the real decision is made based on an emotion, right? In the absence of an emotion, there won't be a decision. So when I ask you, what are you trying to accomplish? That speaks to the logical reason that you want to buy something or that you want to do something. And then when I ask, why is that important? Oftentimes that'll get to the emotional need that you're seeking as part of that process. So that's my hands down all-time favorite question. Help me understand what you're trying to accomplish. And here's another little secret. When you're asking questions, the very next thing you do when you finish asking your question and just ask one at a time is stop talking. And it's so much easier to say than it is to do. I ask questions all the time, and in the 2 seconds that it takes the person to think of a response, I've turned my really good open-ended question into a closed-ended question or a multiple choice question out of impatience. So I use the mute button a lot because it forces me to slow down. Duct tape is really handy, but yeah, so those are a couple of my favorite questions. Where are you from? How'd you get into this business? What are you trying to accomplish? Why is it important to you? What prompted you to reach out to us today? Because all of those questions really elicit, if you afford the person you're asking that question of, if you afford them the opportunity to answer that question, they're going to tell you a story. And it's all the signals and all the information that you need to successfully do business with that person are going to be in that story. So the more they're telling their story, the more they're buying. And so hopefully that helps. You probably get more than you bargained for when you ask me a question.
And speaking of your favorite subject, you're going to be discussing sales and communicating in a webinar coming up. Can you give us a little more information on the webinar?
Yeah, one of my colleagues, a gentleman, Tim Nightingale, he and I've worked together on a couple of different projects, and Tim's area of expertise is conflict resolution and producing high-performing teams in any department, whether it's operations, executive leadership, marketing, sales, doesn't matter. Tim is a people person, and he's amazing at it. And Tim and I have had these discussions for the last year or so about how it's not uncommon for there to be internal conflict inside of a company between the sales team and the operations team. So regardless of what the company produces or delivers or makes, it's not uncommon for there to be internal conflict. So the operations folks go, oh, those salespeople, they're so spoiled. They show up late, they leave early, they're always playing golf. And the salespeople are out there going, come ride in my car for a day and see what it's like to get told no 100 times every single day, right? So there's oftentimes a real lack of empathy between a sales team, especially outside sales, and the internal operational team. And when you have that conflict, it makes it really difficult to produce at a high level. It makes it difficult for those companies to actually meet or achieve their own potential. So our webinar is going to focus on that kind of internal struggle between sales and operations. And Tim's going to speak to the people process and the empathy piece. And I'm going to speak to probably the two things that many companies have in common. Good companies have two things in common very frequently. And the one thing the first thing they have in common is, as it relates to the operations, regardless of what they do or sell, they almost all of them have documented processes for how they make their product, how they distribute their product. If you have a question about any part of the operational process, it's documented somewhere, right? And then the second thing that most companies have in common is their sales team has absolutely no documented process. So it's this dichotomy of opposites where the salespeople are just kind of out there doing their thing, responding to the sound of the loudest drum beats oftentimes. And when things are going well, they're not quite sure why. And when things aren't going well, they're not quite sure why, because they don't have that documented process. Where operations, they really literally know what's going on every minute of every day. And if there's a problem operationally, they know how to fix it. If there's a problem in sales, it could take 3 to 6 months. So what I'm going to talk about is how to build process for the sales team so they can start to accurately predict and forecast revenues. And then Tim's going to talk about the people side and how we can have that internal balance where sales isn't outpacing operations and operations isn't waiting for sales to go make some rain. So hopefully that's an accurate description of what we're going to talk about. There should be some really solid takeaways for people on both sides of that teeter-totter. The operations folks, Tim's going to have some really powerful stuff, and I'm going to have some real blocking and tackling, if you will, go-to moves that sales teams can take literally the next day, where they can start to see predictable revenue or be able to start to forecast incremental growth. And that's what operations is looking for. They don't like question marks. So I think we landed on May 4th or 5th. I can't remember the date off the top of my head. I should have been prepared, but I know it's coming in about 4 weeks. So that's what the listeners have to look forward to.
And if the listeners and viewers want to sign up to join the webinar, where would they go?
Marketing. If anybody wants to reach out to me either via phone, text, or email, I will make sure that they have a link to the webinar. And it's going to be on May 6th, which is a Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And we should have a link on my page very shortly. We're going to be pushing it out. So we're pretty easy to find.
Is there anything else you'd like to add before we close for today?
No, I just I want to say thank you and I appreciate the airtime, and I really think that it's going to be a pretty powerful webinar for folks. Again, typically when I do training sessions, I speak to a very narrow group of people. I'm always talking to the salespeople or the sales leadership team, and it's kind of a one-sided conversation because it leaves out oftentimes 70 or 80% of the rest of an organization. And what Tim and I have put together is a really robust conversation that's going to benefit pretty much anybody on either side of the company, whether they're on the operations or distribution side, or if they're on the sales side. So I promise you it'll be the best hour you spend on Thursday, May 6th.
And if our viewers and listeners wanted to get in contact with you, how would they best reach you?
Best way to reach me is by cell phone, and I think you shouted my number out at the top of the interview. It's area code 916-474-0163. If you Google my name, I'm all over the place. I'm so easy to find. My number's easy to find, and I'm happy to chat with anybody that wants to reach out and learn more about sales leadership, or sales process.
Thank you for taking your time to speak with me today, Les, and I hope you have a happy weekend.
You too. Take care. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Bye.
Reach out to our sponsor, Dynamic Coatings Incorporated. They are a concrete restoration and flooring solution. They offer seamless, antimicrobial, durable, dustproof, and fast cure flooring sealants. They're USDA, FDA, OSHA, and HACCP approved. You can reach them at dciflooring.com or in their Sacramento location at 916-485-6800, their Oakland location at 510-352-7000, their Fresno location at 559-225-4605, or their Los Angeles location at 562-634-9887. And now we will have a moment of silence for our Black Lives Matter community.